Hello everybody! Today we will have a lesson and we will consider the topic health loss risk factors. We will have some key points and have a few references in order to get a short and brief insight into this problem. But before we start, I would like you to try to make some notes or try to remember key facts and some data, some figures, because to complete this lesson participation, it is required from you to be active in a control test and answer questions. So let's start. And the first slide, first picture and the figure is the contribution in overall disease volume by some more or less generalized disease issues. So this data derived from article from 2016, a new practice approach for oral health professionals. But the source itself, what was mentioned, is adapted from Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. So here on the slide we see on the right column the list of the more spread diseases like dietary or smoking, blood pressure, physical inactivity, that is very relevant for our subject, blood sugar, air pollution, and other health-related issues. And on the left part of this figure we see their distribution in percentage of each of these health-related issues, and here we could observe with 24% actually dietary risks. That means that what we eat, what kind of food and water we consume, all this means a lot, and this is the very important health-related risk factor actually. Also we see with 17 and 16% correspondingly we see smoking and high blood pressure. And as you already know, during learning physiology, pathophysiology or other subjects, smoking and high blood pressure is positively correlated with physical inactivity. So if we try to stay healthy, it's a good point, it's a good start to have a regular physical exercising on weekly or every day. Depends on our physical state, current physical state. So let's go to the next slide. And here we have a very important definition: health literacy. Actually, health literacy or physical education is very important because it allows us to manage all the risk factors and try to avoid some diseases that were listed above in the previous slide. So, by the way, what's health literacy? It is, by the way, I suppose you have read or listened about this definition, this term, because it's kind of modern interpretation of health education. By the way, here it is the definition itself and some examples. So, inadequate health literacy has been associated with high mortality rates in older adults who may have less knowledge about chronic disease and less self-management skills. Low health literacy in young adults has been identified as both a significant barrier to enrolling in health coverage and high level of illness. Those with low literacy are usually at high risk for oral diseases, as oral health practices require skill development, understanding concepts, and technique-dependent behaviors. Key to helping patients improve their health is increased provider understanding of their own health literacy and the need to change their communication practices. Oral health providers can assess patients' health literacy normally by observing the patient's interest in written documents, the length of time used to complete health forms, and more formal evaluation using health literacy assessment tools. By the way, here it is their example of oral health issues, but generally we can speak about connection, tight correlation between health education, health literacy, physical education, and health loss risk factors. Because if we are physically active and we know how to manage our daily routine, how to organize our physical activity, what kind of nutrition should be present to maximize our everyday productivity, and how can we harmonize our, for example, mental work, physical work, and physical recreation. This allow us to make a balance, bring balance in our life, and avoid a lot of health-related illnesses. Let's talk about high blood glucose. Changes in diet and reduction in physical inactivity levels increase resistance to insulin, which in turn raises blood glucose. Genetics play an important role in whether individuals with similar diets and physical activity levels become resistant to insulin. Individuals with high levels of insulin resistance are classified as having diabetes. But individuals with raised blood glucose who do not have diabetes also face higher risks of cardiovascular diseases. Globally, 6% of deaths are caused by high blood glucose, with 83% of those deaths occurring in low and middle income countries. The age-specific risk of dying from high blood glucose is lowest in high income countries, and the World Health Organization Western Pacific region. Raised blood glucose causes all diabetes deaths, 22% of ischemic heart disease, and 16% of stroke deaths. So, as a conclusion, we could summarize that high blood glucose, it's a kind of critical, dangerous issue that should be prohibited by physical activity and other measures. But in case of physical education, we should know and make some precautions that we have two ways to prevent high blood glucose harmful influence on our organism. The first way is to manage our nutrition, how much glucose or sugar are we taking, or another way, very important too, is about physical activity. So by simultaneous applying both these ways, we can secure our organism from harmful influence of high blood sugar or glucose. And we should take in account that some kind of diseases, especially diabetes, are genetically determined. That means it depends on our parents or relatives. Are we do we have a precondition to develop diabetes with high blood glucose? If yes, so we should take it very seriously to um, to take a uh, uh, to consider our diet more precisely and make some corrections, make it more balanced. And another way is to try to figure out how can we improve our physical activity on the everyday basis. It's not necessary to go to gym every day, but probably even walking, half an hour walking or bicycling or other activities could be it's a good alternative to everyday gym or bodybuilding or other exercising. The the point is that physical activity is the universal definition, universal phenomenon, but it allows us and provide us with a multiple variety, huge variety of options. How can we achieve physical activity goal? We can use our imagination and creativity to change, to choose, or to even create a particular environment and conditions where we can perform physical activity exercises. And another health-related issue is overweight and obesity, or in other words, high body mass index. World Health Organization estimates that in 2005 more than 1 billion people worldwide were overweight and more than 300 million were obese. Body mass index, overweight and obesity are increasing worldwide due to changes in diet and increasing physical inactivity. Rates of overweight and obesity are projected to increase in almost all countries, with 1.5 billion people overweight in 2015. Average body mass index is highest in the Americas, Europe and Eastern Mediterranean. The risk of coronary heart disease, ischemic stroke and type 2 diabetes grows steadily with increasing body mass, as do the risk of cancers of the breast, colon, prostate and other organs. Chronic overweight contributes to osteoarthritis, a major cause of disability. Globally, 44% of diabetes burden, 23% of ischemic heart disease burden, and from 7 to 41% of certain cancer burdens are attributable to overweight and obesity. In both Southeast Asia and Africa, 41% of deaths caused by high body mass index occur under age 60, compared with 18% in high-income countries. Low fruit and vegetable intake consumption is one element of a healthy diet. Fruit and vegetable intake varies considerably among countries, reflecting economic, cultural and agricultural environments. Insufficient intake of fruit and vegetables is estimated to cause around 14% of gastrointestinal cancer deaths, about 11% of ischemic heart disease deaths, and about 9% of stroke deaths worldwide. Most of the benefit of consuming fruits and vegetables comes from reduction in cardiovascular disease, but fruits and vegetables also prevent cancer. As a summary, nutrition is the key for avoiding and lowering significantly are very dangerous and diseases, sometimes uncurable, like cancer. And overweight and obesity is a precondition and sometimes go hand to hand with type 2 diabetes too. So it's very important. And we should consider genetic disposition too, because if our parents or our relatives have had a tendency, a trend to have a overweight, obese, or high body mass index, so we should take it into account. And again, physical activity is a very powerful source to making balance with high body mass index, and probably compensate a poor nutrition value. If we lack some vitamins, we lack some important fibers to make our digestive system work properly. Some probably moderate physical activity and swimming, bicycling, walking, running, jogging, flexibility training actually could improve our health status and push our physical state in the continuum of disease to health status, because there are no absolutely healthy people, and of course there are no people completely ill. We are drifting in this disease healthy continuum from one side to the other, and in order to drift, to swim, actually to flow closer to the healthy shore of this river, we should take some steps, make some efforts. And by efforts we mean physical activity participation, physical exercising, regular, systematic, and our nutrition habits. All we should think about it and be conscious about it and take some actions. Maybe small steps, good start if we already didn't start it, but actually it's a very powerful source of correction of overweight and obesity. Let's talk about physical inactivity that reduces the risk of physical activity reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease, some cancers, and type 2 diabetes. It can also improve musculoskeletal health, control body weight, and reduce symptoms of depression. Physical activity occurs across different domains, including work, transport, domestic duties, and during leisure. In high-income countries, most activity occurs during leisure time, while in low-income countries, most activity occurs during work, course, or transport. Physical inactivity is estimated to cause around 21 to 25% of breast and colon cancer burden, 27% of diabetes, and about 30% of ischemic heart disease burden. As a summary, we could conclude that physical activity is has a multiple effect and protect our organism from very serious dangerous diseases. Some of them, like type 2 diabetes or cancer, could be considered as not only about influence of aggressive environment, poor nutrition, physical inactivity, but also genetic predisposition. And physical activity, it's not so complicated and difficult to organize activity, but the positive health-related effect is tremendous. And it's all about self-consciousness and management and self-organization. How to make it physical activity work for us? How can we introduce it in our daily routine? How combine our study at the university with the training, with fitness and other forms of physical activity? And this is it. Day by day, in working on our health, implementing physical activity exercises, a variety of them. It's not so difficult, actually it's easy, but on the everyday basis it brings us a tremendous health-related effect, positive effect. Indoor smoke from solid fuels. This is data also derived from a World Health Organization report, and it states that more than half the world's population still cooks with wood, dung, coal or agricultural residues on simple stoves or open fires. Especially under condition of limited ventilation, solid fuel use leads to high exposures to indoor smoke and large associated health risks, particularly for women and children. Indoor smoke from solid fuel use contains a range of potentially harmful substances, from carcinogens to small particulate matter, all of which cause damage to the lungs. Indoor smoke from solid fuel causes about 21% of lower respiratory infection deaths worldwide, 35% of chronic obstructive pulmonary deaths, and about 3% of lung cancer deaths. Of these deaths, about 64% occur in low-income countries, especially in Southeast Asia and Africa. Let's talk about climate change. Average global temperatures are likely to rise by 1.1 to 6.4 degrees Celsius between 1990 and 2100. Physical, ecological and social factors will have a complex effect on climate change. Because of this complexity, current estimates of the attributable and avoidable impacts of climate change are based on models with considerable uncertainty. Potential risks to health include deaths from thermal extremes and weather disasters, vector-borne diseases, a high incidence of food-related and waterborne infections, protochemical air pollutant, and conflict over depleted natural resources. Climate change will have the greatest effect on health in societies with scarce resources, little technology and frail infrastructure. Only some of the many potential effects were fully quantifiable. For example, the effects of more frequent and extreme storms were excluded. Climate change was estimated to be already responsible for 3% of diarrhea, 3% of malaria, and 3.8% of dengue fever deaths worldwide in 2004. Total attributable mortality was about 0.2% of deaths in 2004. Of this, 85% were child deaths. In addition, increased temperatures hastened as many as 12,000 additional deaths. However, These deaths were not included in the totals because the years of life lost by these individuals were uncertain and possibly brief. As a summary, we could conclude that climate change, of course, is influence health loss significantly, and it should also be considered. And climate change it is a controversial issue also, but we should take it into account, of course, too, because as was researched, climate change was estimated to be already responsible for 3% of diarrhea, malaria, and fever. So it's actually important factor to take it into account. And the next issue, health-related issue, is occupational injuries and occupational carcinogens. Let's talk about occupational injuries. Overall, more than 350% of workers lose their lives each year due to unintentional occupational injuries. More than 90% of this injury burden is borne by men, and more than half of the global burden occurs among men working in the World Health Organization Southeast Asia and Western Pacific regions. In men aged 15 to 59 years, 8% of the total burden of unintentional injury is attributable to work-related injuries in high-income countries, and 18% in low and middle-income countries. Occupational carcinogens. At least 150 chemical and biological agents are known or probable causes of cancer. Many of these are found in the workplace, even though occupational cancers are almost entirely preventable through eliminated exposure, substituting safer materials, enclosing processes, and ventilation. Worldwide, these occupational exposures account for an estimated 8% of lung cancer, which is the most frequent form of occupational cancer. Occupational airborne particles. Workplace exposure to microscopic airborne particles can cause lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, silicosis, asbestosis, and pneumoconiosis. These diseases take a long time to develop, so even in countries where the risk has been recognized and controlled, the rate of decline in disease burden has been slow. In developing countries, trends are mostly unknown, but the problem is substantial. Occupational exposure to airborne particles is estimated to cause 12% of deaths due to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Additionally, an estimated 29,000 deaths are due to silicosis, asbestosis, and pneumoconiosis caused by silica, asbestos, and coal dust exposure. So, on our workplace and surrounding environment, we should pay attention for air conditions. If we live in industry district and a lot of smoke generation, and probably we have access to the data and research results about air condition, so we should always take it in account. What should we undertake to make our environment much more cleaner and safe for our organism, and especially for our respiratory system. Of course, physical activity, physical exercising could actually maintain our health status and facilitate this negative and aggressive influence of airborne particles, but it could be lasting for the long period of time. Some measures should be undertaken. Ergonomic stressors. Low back pain can be caused by lifting and carrying heavy loads, demanding physical work, frequent bending, twisting, and awkward postures. Such pain is rarely life-threatening but can limit work and social activities. An estimated 37% of back pain is attributable to occupational risk factors, although not a cause of premature mortality. Low back pain causes considerable morbidity and is a major cause of work absences, resulting in economic loss. Occupational noise. Let's talk about occupational noise. How does this noise influence negatively our organism on our workplace? Excess noise is one of the most common occupational hazards, particularly for mining, manufacturing, and construction workers, especially in developing countries. Its most serious effect is irreversible, unfortunately, and bringing hearing impairment, which is completely preventable. Most exposure can be minimized by engineering controls to reduce noise at its source. About 16% of adult onset hearing loss worldwide is attributable to occupational noise exposure. So, our occupational health includes also considering some ergonomic stressors and trying to eliminate them. Also, next topic of our lesson that will be tomorrow, same time, should be considering ergonomic stressors issue, because we will discuss some specific area of physical exercising. That means in order to make our organism, to make our body less vulnerable, we should have a specific training and specific exercises, and this specificity depends on the kind of work we will have in the future or in present time. For example, low back pain probably is the outcome of poor technique of operational actions or movements by workers. That means some muscle groups are underdeveloped, not developed well, and a proper technique was not in instruction. It's one of the examples, and this is very important because the productivity of the specific workplace, specific plant or fabric depends on the health status of the workers, and the proper instruction and proper physical education, physical literacy again, is important element of in productivity enhancing. So this is the lesson about the health loss risk factors. All these slides are present for you. Probably making some notes is also a good a proper way to memorize some data and some facts. After completion of this video material, you are supposed to go to the control test questions and answer them. here on the slide I would like you to pay attention to the list of the more spread diseases and percentage, because this actually a universal scheme how this illness disposition exist in, and probably the situation will be the same the decades that comes. So dietary risks and smoking, two the major health related factors that actually should be taken in account. And the point is both these health related issues are manageable, so we can change it. By dietary risk, of course, we should have a knowledge, specific knowledge, and will to change our nutrition habits. And by smoking, to to quit it actually, or not to start it, because smoking, of course, it's a very strong habit, but actually we have a power to stop, to quit it. And high blood pressure and high body mass index, we see 16 and 13% correspondingly, very spread. And as a dietary risk and smoking are related to physical inactivity. So it's difficult to imagine if we are physically active every day, we try to perform some exercises, and at the same time we do not follow a proper nutrition, and we smoke. It's it's quite impossible to imagine this situation. And high blood pressure and high body mass index, it's sometimes it's genetically predisposition that we have a high body mass or high blood pressure, but applying physical activity and with particular instruction, we can significantly improve our situation. The same with blood sugar and cholesterol level. Again, physical activity, of course, is a powerful tool to change the situation from some pathogenic orientation to more healthy shore that we should try to drift to. So here we are completing health loss risk factors lecture. This is the actually the end of the semester of the spring term, and I suppose that you have some exams that are common, and I wish you to be well prepared and try your best, get the best excellent on marks. And also I would like you to complete these lessons and control tests, and your current teachers will follow your answering them and make some records. If you have some incomplete tasks, home tasks in this term, so you still have a time, communicate with your teacher and try to work it out, so make all the tasks complete. Concerning this lecture, you can send me messages, questions and comments, and of course this feedback is very important. again, tomorrow we will have a lesson, and that will be with control test 2. For now, this is it. I wish you a good day. Bye bye. See you.